3 minutes ago, history fractured. In an emergency session convened behind sealed palace doors, Prince William reportedly moved to strip Meghan of her Duchess title, backed by members of the Privy Council. No warning, no public softening. A direct institutional strike. What began as a closed-door procedural meeting has detonated into a constitutional shockwave, rippling through the monarchy in real time. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. This was not rumor whispered through tabloids. It was described as formal, structured, deliberate. The kind of decision that reshapes hierarchy in a single sentence. Senior aides, accustomed to navigating crises, were reportedly caught off guard by the speed and severity of the move. There had been speculation about private frustrations, about quiet reassessments of roles, but few imagined that the heir to the throne would push for action at this magnitude, and in an emergency capacity no less. Sources indicate that William himself initiated the consultation, requesting the immediate presence of Privy Council members to review what he framed as institutional integrity concerns. That phrasing alone elevated the matter beyond family tension. This was no sibling rivalry, no domestic disagreement. When the Privy Council becomes involved, the monarchy shifts from emotional dispute to constitutional gravity. It signals enforcement. Inside palace communications teams, chaos reportedly followed. Statements had not been drafted. Contingency messaging was incomplete. Advisors scrambled to assess timing, legality, optics. Who would announce it? How would it be framed? Would it be temporary or permanent? The silence from official channels only intensified speculation. In a digital age where narratives form in seconds, delay is vulnerability. Senior royal aides, long trained in discretion, were said to be stunned. Some viewed the move as bold leadership, others saw risk. Titles within the British peerage are not symbolic accessories, they are markers of identity, duty, and public positioning. Removing one does more than alter formality. It redraws status. It recalibrates standing within the royal structure itself. The involvement of constitutional advisors suggests that this was calculated, not emotional. Deliberate, not impulsive. That distinction matters. Because when a future king acts with institutional backing, it sends a message far beyond the individual targeted. It signals precedent. It signals authority. It signals that modernization, if this is to be framed as such, may arrive with sharp edges rather than gradual reform. What makes this moment historic is not simply the removal of a Duchess title, it is the method. Swift. Structured. Shielded by council procedure. The monarchy has endured scandal, criticism, public division. But internal structural dismantling at this level is rare in the modern era. And beneath the shock lies an even heavier realization: this was not a family disagreement, it was institutional enforcement. But such a drastic move does not materialize without years of tension simmering beneath the surface. This confrontation did not erupt overnight. The fracture between Meghan and the institution had been widening long before today's emergency session. Smiles were public. Resentment was private. The monarchy had tolerated distance, but not defiance. From the beginning, there were ideological differences that never fully settled. Meghan arrived with a modern, global perspective, media fluent, socially outspoken, fiercely independent. The institution she entered was centuries old, measured, disciplined, slow to shift. What one side viewed as authenticity, the other sometimes interpreted as unpredictability. What she framed as autonomy, traditionalists quietly labeled disruption. The contrast was not explosive at first. It was subtle. But subtle tensions, left unaddressed, calcify. As William's vision for a streamlined modern monarchy began to crystallize, the divergence became sharper. His strategy focused on controlled messaging, unified fronts, disciplined engagement. Meghan's narrative emphasized personal voice, transparency, and the right to self-definition beyond palace scripts. These approaches were not merely stylistic differences, they reflected competing philosophies about how the crown should survive the 21st century. Then came moments that shifted private discomfort into visible strain. Public interviews, headlines that reignited internal grievances, conversations that should have remained within family walls echoing across continents. For traditional courtiers, it felt destabilizing. The monarchy relies on mystique, controlled exposure, carefully rationed vulnerability. When that boundary blurred, concern deepened. Inside the palace, discomfort grew among senior aides who had dedicated decades to preserving continuity. They worried about precedent. If one member could openly challenge institutional norms without consequence, what message did that send? What ripple effect might follow? Loyalty to the crown often outweighs loyalty to individuals. And when advisors begin to question long-term stability, quiet warnings escalate into strategic discussions. For William, frustration reportedly accumulated over time. He had shouldered increasing responsibility, absorbing scrutiny while preparing for eventual kingship. From his perspective, reputational erosion, even indirect, posed long-term risk. A monarchy battling credibility cannot afford sustained controversy. The concern was not only personal, it was structural. And structure in royal thinking must be protected at all costs. Yet none of this unfolded in shouting matches or dramatic ultimatums. It unfolded in pauses, in tightened expressions, in meetings that ended without resolution. Beneath ceremonial unity, ideological distance widened. Patience became endurance. Endurance became fatigue. And fatigue, when mixed with responsibility, can harden into decisive resolve. There is a moment in every institution when tolerance reaches its threshold. Not because conflict is new, but because accumulated tension finally outweighs restraint. When patience within a monarchy expires, consequences follow swiftly. And when the Privy Council was summoned, it was clear restraint had ended. Phones were surrendered, doors sealed, senior constitutional advisors assembled. And then William spoke not as a brother, not as a future king, but as a defender of institutional continuity. His tone, according to those familiar with the exchange, was measured, controlled, not fueled by personal grievance, but by strategic urgency. He did not begin with accusation. He began with credibility. The monarchy, he argued, survives on perception as much as tradition. Public confidence is its invisible currency. And when that confidence fractures, symbolism alone cannot repair it. He outlined concerns that had reportedly accumulated over years. Headlines that blurred institutional boundaries. Narratives that positioned private grievance against royal structure. Public appearances and statements that, in his view, created ambiguity about allegiance. None of it explosive in isolation. But collectively, he framed it as erosion. Not loud enough to shatter, but persistent enough to weaken foundations. The room, filled with constitutional veterans accustomed to measured deliberation, shifted from passive listening to active scrutiny. Revoking a duchess title is not a ceremonial adjustment. It intersects with centuries of peerage law, parliamentary precedent, and sovereign authority. Advisors reportedly questioned procedural legitimacy. Could an heir initiate such a move? Would it require parliamentary reinforcement? Was this symbolic suspension or structural removal? William, it is said, anticipated those questions. He referenced institutional safeguards, internal reviews, precedent frameworks rarely discussed outside royal archives. He did not present it as punishment. He presented it as recalibration, a necessary correction to protect the crown's long-term coherence. The language was strategic, not emotional. That distinction carried weight. Still, beneath the procedural formality, emotion pulsed. Because regardless of legal frameworks, this was family. A sister-in-law, a brother's wife, the mother of royal children. The tension between personal bonds and institutional duty hovered heavily. Advisors may speak in statutes and clauses, but human history seeps through every line of authority. Some members reportedly expressed hesitation not over reputational concerns, but over precedent. If titles can be reconsidered in response to narrative tension, what boundary prevents future revisions? Where does institutional protection end and political maneuvering begin? These were not minor doubts. They were existential questions for a monarchy that depends on stability as proof of legitimacy. William did not retreat. He emphasized that inaction can be more destabilizing than action. Allowing reputational ambiguity to persist, he argued, signals weakness. And weakness in an institution built on continuity invites erosion from within and scrutiny from without. His posture suggested resolve hardened by reflection. This was not impulsive outrage. It was accumulated decision. What made the atmosphere volatile was not shouting. It was certainty. Certainty on one side, caution on the other, and the realization that once initiated, reversal would be politically costly. By the time the legal framework was dissected and the constitutional pathways debated, the emotional temperature had already shifted. This meeting would not end with compromise. What followed stunned even seasoned constitutional veterans. With deliberate clarity, William announced it. Effective immediately, Meghan would be stripped of her Duchess title pending formal ratification. The air reportedly froze. This was not symbolic reprimand, it was structural removal. The weight of those words did not land softly. A Duchess title is not a decorative honorific. It is embedded in legal charters, historical grant, and sovereign authority. To suspend or revoke it touches the architecture of the peerage system itself. Advisors understood instantly that this was not a reversible headline, it was a constitutional maneuver with consequences that could echo for decades. There were no raised voices, no dramatic objections. But silence can be louder than protest. Members of the council reportedly exchanged glances that carried more tension than spoken disagreement. Some began calculating precedent in real time. Others measured public fallout against institutional preservation. A few, seasoned by years inside the machinery of monarchy, grasped the magnitude immediately. This would redraw boundaries between heir authority and sovereign prerogative. Questions surfaced, carefully worded but unmistakably urgent. Would parliamentary consultation follow? Could formal ratification be contested? What message would this send to Commonwealth nations already navigating evolving relationships with the Crown? The monarchy's power rests not only in law, but in perception. And perception is global. Beyond the procedural concerns, emotional shock rippled quietly through the palace hierarchy. Titles define standing. Standing defines influence. Influence shapes access. Removing that designation altered not only Meghan's public identity, but her position within the royal structure. Invitations, precedents, ceremonial placement, all would be recalculated. The implications were immediate and deeply personal. There was also the matter of precedent. If reputational strain can justify title reassessment, where does that principle end? Could future heirs revisit decisions made by reigning monarchs? Could institutional dissatisfaction override familial bonds? These were not rhetorical concerns. They struck at the core of continuity. William, by all accounts, did not waver. His language reportedly remained firm, rooted in protection of the institution rather than critique of the individual. He framed it as safeguarding legacy, ensuring that the Crown's credibility remained intact. Whether viewed as decisive reform or aggressive consolidation of authority, the declaration carried unmistakable force. For those present, the realization settled heavily. The monarchy would not leave that chamber unchanged. Even if formal ratification required additional steps, the psychological shift had already occurred. Authority had been asserted in a way rarely seen in modern royal life. The chamber may have remained sealed, but the tremor had already begun. But the decision's true impact would be felt far beyond palace walls. Within minutes, the world ignited. Supporters called it overdue accountability. Critics labeled it vindictive overreach. Social platforms exploded. Headlines fractured along ideological lines. News outlets across continents pivoted instantly. Legal analysts debated constitutional mechanics in prime time. Commentators dissected the difference between peerage removal and symbolic suspension. Was this within the heir's scope? Did it require sovereign endorsement? The questions multiplied faster than answers could be issued. In a globalized monarchy, perception travels at the speed of outrage. On social media, the divide was sharp and emotional. Reform advocates praised what they described as decisive leadership. They framed the move as institutional clarity, proof that the future king would not allow ambiguity to cloud the crown. To them, it was strength. It was modernization with teeth. It was necessary recalibration. On the other side, critics bristled. They saw humiliation where supporters saw discipline. They argued that stripping a Duchess title signaled intolerance rather than stability. Hashtags emerged defending Meghan's autonomy. Sympathy movements coalesced quickly. fueled by long-standing narratives of outsider resistance within royal walls. The same action that inspired applause in some circles ignited fury in others. Global media did not treat it as a minor procedural adjustment. It became front-page material. Panels debated morality as much as legality. Was this enforcement or escalation? Was it preservation of tradition or a warning to dissenters? Comparisons surfaced to historic royal demotions moments when the crown reasserted authority under pressure. But rarely had such a move occurred in an era so digitally amplified. Commonwealth observers weighed implications carefully. The monarchy's symbolic authority stretches beyond Britain. Any internal rupture reverberates internationally. If titles can be revoked amid public controversy, what does that signal about stability? What message does it send to nations already reassessing their relationship with the crown? Perhaps most striking was how quickly narrative hardened. For some, William became the embodiment of decisive leadership. For others, he crossed into dangerous precedent. Meghan's supporters framed her as unjustly targeted. Detractors argued consequences had finally arrived. The polarization was immediate and intense. And through it all, official palace channels maintained calculated silence. No sweeping statements. No emotional defense. Just measured acknowledgement of procedural review. That restraint only intensified speculation. In the absence of narrative control, public interpretation fills the void. The real battle, it seemed, was shifting from council chamber to collective perception. Because in a monarchy sustained by symbolism, public memory carries weight equal to constitutional authority. Public perception may now determine permanence. But inside the royal family, the fallout was far more personal. For Harry, this was not constitutional debate, it was personal devastation. His wife's title removed. His brother leading the charge. The institution choosing preservation over reconciliation. Reports suggest that when the news reached him, the reaction was not measured analysis but raw emotion. Titles to some are symbolic. To Harry, this one carried weight beyond ceremony. It represented legitimacy, belonging, acknowledgement within a system that had already strained his loyalty. Its removal felt less like administrative correction and more like erasure. The sibling dynamic, long complicated by expectation and destiny, now stands under harsher light. William, groomed for authority since birth, moves with institutional backing. Harry, once the spare, has navigated a different path, one marked by distance, self-definition, and at times public challenge. The contrast between them has always existed quietly. Now it feels amplified. Tension that once lived in private conversations risks becoming irreversible. There is a difference between disagreement and structural action. Disagreements can be mended with time. Structural moves, especially those made with constitutional gravity, redefine hierarchy. For Harry, watching his brother assert such decisive authority may feel less like leadership and more like finality. Insiders fear that this could deepen the divide between households. Communication, already strained, may harden into silence. Family relationships within royal life are rarely insulated from public consequence. Every fracture is magnified, every attempt at reconciliation scrutinized. The question hovering now is not whether trust has been tested, but whether it can be restored. There is also the possibility of response. Harry has never shied away from telling his version of events. The world has witnessed interviews, memoir reflections, and carefully framed public statements. Would he remain silent this time? Or would he defend his wife with renewed intensity? A retaliatory narrative could escalate the situation from institutional recalibration to full public confrontation. Yet beneath potential headlines lies something more fragile. This is family. Shared childhood. Shared loss. Shared history. The emotional toll of watching institutional authority collide with personal loyalty cannot be understated. When the crown intervenes, blood ties are tested in ways few families ever experience. Those close to the situation suggest that emotions are volatile, not explosive in volume, but heavy in consequence. Decisions made in moments of hurt can define decades, and once words are spoken publicly, they cannot be withdrawn into privacy. For Harry, the crisis is layered anger, betrayal, protective instinct, and perhaps a realization that the bridge between him and his brother may now be thinner than ever. This could mark the final rupture, Yet this crisis may extend beyond sibling rivalry. What if this was not punishment, but positioning? A message that the future king is no longer waiting quietly in ceremonial shadow. Strip away the emotion, the headlines, the outrage, and what remains looks strikingly strategic. For years, William has operated as heir apparent in a world that often demanded patience over assertion. Yet this moment did not feel patient. It felt declarative. It signaled that authority is not something he intends to inherit passively. It is something he is willing to exercise in real time, when he believes institutional stability requires it. By initiating an emergency consultation and securing Privy Council backing, he did more than target a title. He demonstrated de facto leadership. In monarchies, power is as much about perception as it is about decree. The act communicated something unmistakable. The future king is prepared to act with constitutional weight, not just symbolic presence. That distinction shifts the internal balance of gravity. Institutional recalibration now appears underway. Advisors who once viewed William primarily as successor must now account for his willingness to shape outcomes before formal accession. That changes dynamics inside palace corridors. It changes how strategies are formed. It changes who holds momentum in sensitive debates. Leadership is no longer theoretical, it is operational. For traditionalists within the monarchy, the message may feel reassuring. A firm hand. A protector of continuity. Someone unwilling to allow reputational uncertainty to linger unchecked. For reformists, the signal is more complex. It suggests modernization will not be soft or gradual, it may come through decisive enforcement rather than negotiation. Either way, the action speaks to transformation rather than maintenance. And then there is Catherine. In contrast to turbulence, her silence has amplified her stature. While controversy swirls elsewhere, she remains positioned as composed, disciplined, aligned with institutional structure. By contrast alone, her role strengthens. Stability gains value when juxtaposed against conflict. The optics are powerful even without a single public statement. The Privy Council's involvement fortified legitimacy. This was not a lone declaration made in emotional haste. It carried advisory endorsement. That endorsement does not erase controversy, but it does reinforce constitutional scaffolding. It tells observers that the move was vetted, measured, debated, and still pursued. This episode may ultimately be less about Meghan's removal and more about William's emergence. The shift from symbolic heir to active authority rarely happens in one visible moment. Yet this feels close to that. The monarchy has weathered crises before, but rarely has an heir asserted structural influence so publicly before accession. If this is positioning, it is bold positioning. It reframes succession as gradual assumption of control rather than sudden coronation. It suggests that transformation begins before ceremony. And if that interpretation holds, then the monarchy emerging from this will not resemble the one before. But not everyone inside the palace sees this as reform. Power, once asserted boldly, invites resistance quietly. Behind closed doors, questions are forming. Did William move too soon? Did the institution move too far? Within advisory circles, debate has reportedly shifted from reaction to risk assessment. Precedent is the invisible backbone of monarchy. Once altered, it rarely returns to its original shape. Some constitutional minds are said to be weighing long-term implications with measured concern. If an heir can initiate structural title removal before accession, what prevents future reinterpretations of authority? Stability depends on predictability. And predictability, once shaken, can create unease even among loyalists. There is also the matter of succession optics. Accelerating visible authority before formal coronation changes perception of the reigning monarch's centrality. Even if Charles remains sovereign in title, the psychological transfer of influence may feel abrupt. That tension, subtle but significant, could deepen generational fault lines within palace corridors. The crown must appear unified to endure. Any hint of internal acceleration invites scrutiny. Beyond Britain's borders, observers are calculating their own interpretations. Commonwealth allies, already navigating complex relationships with the monarchy, may view the decision through a broader lens. Does this signal assertive modernization or internal instability? Diplomatic symbolism carries weight. Titles represent more than domestic identity. They echo internationally. Any recalibration reverberates outward. Meanwhile, public sympathy continues to evolve. For some, Meghan's demotion reinforces narratives of institutional rigidity. For others, it validates a long-awaited line drawn in defense of royal order. These dual interpretations are not static. They shift daily, shaped by commentary, statements, and silence. Public memory is fluid in the moment, but over time it crystallizes. The narrative that endures will shape legacy, and Meghan herself remains an unpredictable variable. Those familiar with her past responses know she does not retreat quietly from public consequence. Strategy may already be forming. A statement, an interview, a reframing of events that positions removal as proof of resistance rather than defeat. If that occurs, the institutional narrative may face renewed challenge. The monarchy thrives on closure. Ceremony provides finality. Yet this episode offers none. No coronation, no reconciliation, no decisive conclusion. Instead, it leaves suspended questions hanging in corridors lined with history. Because removal does not always mean resolution, which leaves one final question echoing through the monarchy. Was this necessary reform or a royal coup carried out under the banner of modernization? A future king dismantled a duchess's status through institutional authority, and the crown endured. That endurance may be the most revealing detail of all. The palace did not crumble. The monarchy did not fracture in public ceremony. Instead, it absorbed the shock and recalibrated. But endurance does not equal immunity. Internal unity, once strained at this level, rarely returns untouched. There are fractures that remain invisible to the public eye yet echo through generations. Trust, once unsettled, does not simply reset. William now stands in a paradoxical position, strengthened and controversial at the same time. His authority feels undeniable. He demonstrated decisiveness where others hesitated. He acted with constitutional backing rather than emotional impulse. For supporters, that signals readiness. For critics, it signals consolidation of influence before accession. Leadership defined by bold action invites admiration and apprehension in equal measure. Meghan's political future remains suspended in ambiguity. Removal of a title does not erase her voice, nor does it eliminate global visibility. If anything, it sharpens her narrative. She now occupies a space between institutional exile and symbolic resistance. That position carries risk, but also potential. The way she responds will shape how history frames this moment. Silence could signal retreat. Response could reignite confrontation. Harry stands at a crossroads that feels heavier than any before. Loyalty to spouse, loyalty to blood, loyalty to legacy. These are not abstract dilemmas, they are lived realities inside royal life. Every choice from this point forward carries amplified consequence. If reconciliation is pursued, it must be deliberate. If defiance emerges, it may permanently redefine familial bonds. And then there is public memory. In the immediacy of controversy, narratives feel chaotic, but over time they condense into simplified judgment. Future historians will not debate hashtags, they will evaluate precedent. Was this the moment the monarchy demonstrated adaptive strength? Or was it the instant internal power dynamics became overt? Public interpretation today becomes historical framing tomorrow. The tension that lingers is not procedural, it is philosophical. Was this justice or dangerous precedent? Did William protect the institution from reputational erosion, or did he introduce a new template for authority assertion before coronation? Reform and rupture can appear identical in the moment. Only time distinguishes which it was. What remains undeniable is that something shifted. Not ceremonially, not symbolically, but structurally. The generational power shift that once felt distant now feels present. Authority was tested in real time and it did not retreat. Because when power shifts inside a monarchy, it does not whisper, it roars. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.